Well, we have a very special treat for you on this episode of the Mental Dimes podcast. We are speaking to University of Alabama Huntsville head basketball coach Mick Hedgepeth. He enters his second season with the Chargers after a 32-win first season, which saw the Chargers advance to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Division II tournament. Coach and I talk about his philosophy as a coach with previous stops at both Barry and Sewanee, and how he connects with his players while also teaching them and then learning from them at the same time. It's an incredibly wonderful interview. It's a great honor to be able to speak to him, to learn how he progresses through his time as a head coach, but then also what he has in store for this upcoming season at UAH. So I hope you all enjoy. Coach, it is an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And I think my first question has to be, you have quite a few years now of coaching experience, and now you've wrapped up your first year at UAH at University of Alabama Huntsville. You have years at Barry, you have years at Sewanee. How have you seen yourself develop, not only as a coach, but especially as a head coach in these years that you've had these positions when it comes to connecting with players, coaching during games? How have you seen yourself change?
Well, Charles, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to spend some time with you and share a little bit about my journey. That's a really good question. When I think about my 12 going into 13 years of coaching college basketball, I think I've certainly had a level of change. And I think the times have changed in that window as well. I think specifically in my years as a head coach, I have I have tried to do a better job, and I think it's one of the more important things you can do of being fair but not equal, if that makes sense. I was a little bit more emotional, more of a yeller and a screamer when I was 27-year-old, first time head coach. Um, and I think the longer that I've done it, the more I've asked questions such as, how do you like to be coached?
Hmm.
What, or even maybe more than what you like, what brings out your best? Is it being challenged? Is it being encouraged? Is it somewhere in the middle? Is it pulling you to the side and not saying it in front of the team? Is it saying it in front of the team? So I think just learning what buttons to push for each player individually. Um, Obviously, there's been some tactical developments with Steph Curry coming along and, analytics and so many other factors. The game has really changed a lot in terms of X's and O's. But I think from a personnel standpoint, just I believe that love is spelled Time. So spending plenty of time with your players and figuring out kind of what makes them tick has been, I think, a big area of my development.
I think that also really speaks to just the importance of that emotional connection you can have with an individual. And I think that stretches along just coaches in general. Coaches have such a great point to play, a great role to play in someone's life. And just thinking about that from that side of things, you talking about how do you kind of work your way to connect with a player and things like that. And as time has gone on, do you find that it's become a little bit more challenging, I guess? Or do you think it's when you look at how one team was 2 years ago to how a team is now with these players who you have now? Have you found it more challenging now to connect with guys, or is it's just a different group and so they all pose different challenges and it's just for you to adapt to and to understand them so you can coach them the best way possible?
Sure. A couple things that come to mind. I think it goes back to the old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I just think that trust is such an important thing. It takes time to build, and especially in the current recruiting climate and high roster turnover every year. I know right now I'm just had a calendar made with 36 slots in the next 6 weeks for me to spend time with players. And, it's, I have a rule that we won't talk basketball in those 30 to 45 minutes. And there's certain options like we've got a few old guys on the team who drink coffee, so I've got some coffee options because I love coffee. I need to lose some weight, so I've got walking options. We've got lunches in the cafeteria, but I try not to bring them into the principal's office and have that feel in my office. But just to spend some time with them, kind of kill two birds with one stone with some things I'm going to do anyway or need to do, like walk. Um, but just invest in them. I mean, and get to know them and, have different talking points, kind of see what they want after basketball, what they want to learn from being on this team and, get to know about their family and what's going on in their life. If it's just coaching and it's just transactional, I've learned you just never know what anyone is going through, and I think that's a good life lesson unless you kind of you know peel back some of those layers. And then I think if someone knows that it's not just transactional, what can you do for me and what can I do for you, but if it's hey this guy's he's real. Players can tell if you're authentic or not, and I think if you gain that trust, then there's a little more permission to hold them accountable, to challenge them, to bring out their best, talk about each other's goals, and all of those things. I think are just really important. And then, um, do I relate to them now as well as I used to? Probably not, to be honest with you. I think, again, when I was a 27, 28-year-old head coach, I was still pretty closely removed to my playing days, and was in a little bit better shape and a little less gray hair and that type of thing. And um, probably was a little more relatable. I think now I'm in a little bit of a different stage of life, and they're saying words that I thought tough meant something different than it means now, apparently. For example, so there's a lot of things like that that I only have Twitter in terms of social media because I need it for recruiting and our team and whatnot, but I'm getting left behind in the times. But hopefully they still know that I want to spend a lot of time with them and love them and care about them and relate maybe in other ways. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
And I think that's such a great part about coaching, and I think working in sports especially as well. Do you find that you're teaching? I mean, you are in a position of leadership, you're in a position of teaching because you have these guys who've learned quite a lot. And as you said, they're very smart. They understand when someone is trustworthy and they can rely on them. But then at the same time, you're also teaching them. You're teaching them the way things operate in your program. But at the same time, you're learning from them. And is that maybe something that drew you to want to be a coach of that aspect of one, yes, you're a leader and you're a teacher, but two, you also are learning and being taught at times by your players year in and year out. Is that something that maybe drew you to the position, to drew you to this type of career field?
Absolutely. I think everyone just really, I think their previous experiences really help form and shape their lives. And that was certainly the case for me. I had a very impactful 4 years in college. I played at Belmont University from 2008 to 2012, and that was a very hard experience. Like yourself, I went to a small town in rural Alabama and small high school, and was kind of a big fish in a small pond, and did well in school and did well on the court and had high expectations. And my freshman year, my confidence in a lot of areas was up here, and it went down here really quickly. Didn't play, was struggling in school, was struggling socially, but I was surrounded by a lot of really good people, and my coaches and teammates, and it was a hard experience, but it was so good for me. Um, uh, I've had like five former teammates in my wedding. I think I've been in seven of theirs, and a lot of us still go on a golf trip and talk and our give each other our life updates and kids and everything that we're doing going through now in our early to mid 30s. And that's what it's all about, right? And I think that experience, um even though I worked in the corporate world for about a year, I think that experience is what ultimately led me to coach. um and then of course I think it can't just be about the wins and the losses. I mean, I'm as competitive as they come and want to win as much or more than anybody, but ultimately it's got to be bigger than that. And um, I think that deep down we're all selfish, right? But I also think that deep down we all want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think there is no greater tool than athletics to be able to learn all of the lessons that come with being a part of a team and sacrificing for the greater good, and trying to just walk with our players through that and share my experience and try to find any moment that can be a life lesson teaching point. And then of course I learned from them. It's there's a lot of tough decisions, a lot of maybe my least favorite part of being a coach is you have to kind of be the judge, and you're a starter, you're a backup, you're a scout team, those type of things that are hard. I have to be the bad guy at times, even though I don't want to be, right? But just have to try to make the best decisions for the team. And I've certainly learned a lot in a lot of those decisions along the way from our players. So it's been a great journey so far.
In that journey, you were at Sewanee, and then you were at Barry, both smaller schools, Sewanee and Barry, both Barry, of course, well-known basketball here as well. But then UAH now, your first year, you only lose two games, you make the Sweet 16, the Division II NCAA tournament. And what is that now? You have such a splash in that first year, and the excitement level is incredibly high. And you talked about roster turnover and learning from new players and learning how to coach new players. Now as you look ahead, it's going into another year there. What are those priorities for you, to take that first year that you had with the Chargers and go ahead to this second year with them?
Well, I think I was number one. I was really fortunate to inherit a great group of players. I think, number one, that's a credit to the previous coaching staff, John Schulman and his staff, um, who formed that team and recruited the majority of that team. Um, I think it speaks, I think what speaks as highly of UAH as anything in terms of our men's basketball program is that spring of 2024, there was an entirely new coaching staff, you know, um, in terms of that turnover, everyone left and only one player transferred.
Hmm.
And the top two leading scorers returned, in a day and age where, the average number of transfers per team is four or five, and only one left with a coaching change on top of that. So I think that just speaks to this place, to the culture, to the brotherhood, um, and really fortunate to be a part of that. Last year was a year of high hopes and high expectations, and voted preseason number one in the league. And we had seven seniors, six of whom were fifth year guys. I mean, I think our average age was like 22 and a half or something, because we had COVID seniors and traditional seniors. Um, and then you lose seven of those guys, and a few other guys transfer out. We lost 11 and added 10 players, with five freshmen and five transfers. We have eight returners. Um, so I think it's going to be a year where there's more unknown, right? We graduated all five starters and 86% of our scoring. And I'm excited about it. It's a different challenge. Last year was kind of managing those expectations, and now we were on a win streak, and we won 32 games in a row. That's as good as that is, right? Everyone wants to do that, and that was an incredible ride. At the same time, it presents challenges. You have to guard against complacency and still try to have a growth mindset, right? Um, I think this year will be um, a new set of challenges. I think there's kind of that mentality of, oh, UAH lost so many guys. How are they going to be this year? And just kind of managing that. I do think we've got a chance this year to, as any year where you have a lot of turnover, I think that we have the opportunity to get a lot better as the season progresses. So I hope that it's a team that is a lot better in February and March than we are when we start the season, and that we can you know gel together quickly. I think that's an advantage last year's team had, is they had all played together for so many years. And this year, obviously, there's a lot of new with eight returners who I'm very hopeful that can all take big jumps and lead us in on the court as well as off the court, and showing all the newcomers how things operate here at UAH. But yeah, I think that's kind of our expectations for the season to come, but I'm excited about it.
And I think that's one of the this next question is, it kind of hits on a thing that I always remember when you're watching a game or you're talking a game. And when I was a kid, losses of my favorite teams would just crush me. You couldn't talk to me for a day, couldn't talk to me for 2 days, however it might be. When in your time as a head coach, there's that saying, it's like, well, you learn more when you lose. Well, as your time as a head coach, what do you feel? Where do you feel you and your players learn more from? Is it from a win? Is it from a loss? Is it a little bit of a mixture of both? When you sit there and you look at how your teams progress and how they take a loss or they take a win and then go on and advance into the season, where do they learn more from, a win or a loss? What is your feeling on that?
I think by human nature, we all probably, even though we try to learn as much as we possibly can from a win, um, I think that you're a little bit more, just again, by human nature, you're probably a bit more on edge after a loss. There's probably a bit more sense of urgency, I would say. Um, Although I will say I try to be an pretty steady, even keel, never as good as it seems, never as bad as it seems type of guy. I hope that our teams kind of feed off of that, because I do think that emotional maturity is a really big part of sports and a big part of life. Um, Lenny Acuff was the head coach here for 22 years and is now the head coach at Samford, and is just a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal person. And um, I heard him say one time, we can't have a parade every time we win, and we can't have a funeral every time we lose. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Um, Again, we try to evaluate the same. We try to evaluate every game the same way, whether we win or lose. We're gonna have our talking points, have our video session, evaluate our goals, and try to learn the same way from both. But if I had to pick one, I would pick after a loss. We learn a little bit more.
And I wonder, would you think when you were a player at Belmont, would you have said the same thing? Do you think you would have said, yeah, I probably would learn more from a loss than a win? How do you would you think the same thing, years back when you played at Belmont?
Yes, I would. Especially, and I've been fortunate to be a part of some good teams. I've been a part of some not so good teams too. But I think especially when you're winning significantly more than you lose, those losses really hurt. Or maybe if you're in contention for a championship, and I think that can really be motivating. What I want to guard against is the opposite of that. And this is you know, I think something that if you're at a place where there are high expectations or if there is a great tradition, um, can be something challenging to navigate. But I have felt at certain times, whether I was a player or a coach, that winning was just a relief and losing was the end of the world. Um, and that's a bad place to be because it's like, well, if you win, you were just supposed to, and if you lose, it's, really bad for everybody involved. And I think that's a bad place to be because we all started playing basketball because we love the game. And if that is what's happening, then you can lose your joy. I tell you what, it's really, really hard to win a basketball game. It is really hard. Um, so I think when you do, even though you don't need to have a parade, I think there does need to be an element of joy in the locker room and a sense of that with your team because tell you what, you don't want to take winning for granted. A couple years ago, we started the season 3-9. I mean, it can go the other way real quick. So we want to have that balance.
And as a coach, when you talk about that, don't want to take it for granted, but you also, you don't want to get your parade, start ordering streamers and putting on hats and whatnot. Is when you're getting that message to your team, when you're talking to your players and talking to the team and saying, okay, this is how we need to have this kind of identity. Have you found that it's, I guess I'm trying to see if it's like, would you say it's harder to get that across with you have that group? You always seem to feel that you have a guy or two on that team who just a loss, just it might just knock them down, and it takes a little bit to bring them back. And it's like, hey, it's Thursday, we have a game in 3 days. You need to be back on the horse because we need you. Or what? Do you ever find that with any of your players that it's like man, when they take a loss and they can take it very hard because some competitors are just extremely competitive.
Yes, again, I think that goes back to spending time with each guy and understanding each guy. And then I think a lot like it's so many things in life, it is a balancing act. Something that I try to do is, you know, maybe after we win a game, I think having some positive reinforcement um, for certain players who maybe made winning plays that don't show up in the stat sheet, for example.
Mhm.
Um, I also believe in the next day at practice being harder on them than if we would have lost the game. And kind of vice versa. I think it's human nature as a coach after you lose a game to want to just make the next practice as hard as possible, right? But I think sometimes what the team needs after that is a little bit of a pat on the back. I'm not saying it should be an easy practice, but I think sometimes maybe everyone or some of your key guys or whatever the case may be, that there may be a little bit of the a feel that everyone's beating themselves up, and maybe you need to lift the team up in those moments. So a lot of that is a feel and a balancing act, and I think that's as much as I was an accounting major and black and white and like to type A and all that, like it is there is an art of coaching, and ultimately we are again, as much as I like the X's and O's, ultimately we're managing people. So just trying to have a good pulse of your team is critical.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. I know Coach Behringer and I both really appreciate again you just giving us a few minutes of your time tonight to speak about this, and just your philosophy as a coach, your in-depth feelings as a coach. Just an absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you tonight. I thank you so much. Hopefully, when I'm home to visit this fall, into the winter, I can drop over to Huntsville, get up from Grant, and see the big city, and get over there for a basketball game to see you all play. And but again, just absolute appreciation for you just giving us a few moments of your time tonight. I thank you.
Absolutely. I hope to see you at a game this year, and thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.